And I think we're recording the meeting as well, so that's good. I'm just looking at the attendees list, everyone. So, which is rapidly increasing. So we'll just give it a minute. Okay. So I think we should make a start. So welcome everybody. Welcome to the Postgraduate Open Day for Bournemouth University for the Faculty of Media, Science and Technology. So we have an hour together. Apologies for the slightly belated start. We were having some technical issues, all entirely down to me, I should say that. So I want to take the blame for that. So that's quite important. So, but it's delighted to actually have you here. Hopefully we can have a productive session. There's two components really to what we're going to be doing for this session, for this 1 hour with you. The first one is we're going to try and whiz through fairly briefly and quickly a presentation that presents the faculty, but also the university. We're not going to bombard you with information. I'm sure you have a lot of questions, which is really the second part, the second component to this session. So we'll actually focus on your questions. We have a collection of my colleagues, as well as some of our students here with us. We're going to try and direct the questions as best we can based on individual expertise and which part of the faculty everybody belongs to and their own experiences as well with their studies, as well as Bournemouth University and the faculty. So I think what we can do at this stage is probably make a start with the presentation. We will, at some point, do introductions as well, but I'd like to do that as we go along with your questioning, actually. I think it's more important for people to introduce themselves and say who they are and what they do and why they're here. But before we do any of that, before we go on to your questions and before we go on to introductions of my colleagues, let's actually begin with the presentation. We'll play a very short video for you first that introduces Bournemouth University very well, we feel, and we'll make a start with that. Excellent. Right. So let's move on to the presentation itself. So, welcome to the Faculty of Media Science and Technology, one of the three faculties at Bournemouth University. So, obviously, faculties are a construct of a collection of discipline areas. So, we have faculties, then schools, then within schools we have programs. So, if you join us to study for a master's course, you're actually joining one of our programs specifically. So, next slide, please. So why Bournemouth University? So why would you want to study here as opposed to somewhere else? First of all, I think it is important to say, and hopefully that will come across in some of the conversations with your questions, that we're very passionate about what we do. We're very passionate about our successes. We're very passionate about our track record as well, in terms of what we've achieved as an institution since the inception of Bournemouth University back in 1992. So we're here to learn and change. So that's actually part of our motto as well. We're here to also find balance, both as staff and as a community of students. And we're here to actually take opportunities as well. So there's a lot of stakeholders, there's a lot of activities that are interwoven in this, from AFC Bournemouth, our Premier League football team, based here in Bournemouth, UHD, University Hospitals Dorset, relating predominantly to our health degrees, but also with extensions to a lot of what we do in this faculty as well. So there's a lot of very impressive stats. I'm not going to, again, overwhelm you with some of these stats. But currently, we have 89% of graduates in work or further study, according to some of the data that we're receiving continuously on student outcomes. We're 21st in research quality, according to the Times, in fact, and also 41st overall in the UK. We're 8th in the UK and 59th in the world on THC, again, Times impact rankings. Those are from last year. And we're first, we're particularly proud of that, for mental health and well-being support. So in terms of supporting our students in that particular area, we're very, very proud of and incredibly gracious, I think, of the efforts of our colleagues who are working on this for that specific achievement. Next slide, please, Natasha. So our focus really is on a professionally orientated degree and employability. So that has permutations and extensions in many different directions. So it's about working with the industry, it's about placements, about live project briefs, it's about guest speakers, it's about professional accreditations, it's about industrial advisory boards that inform us, members of staff, in terms of how we teach you on the various courses that you will see in one of the next few slides, the various PG courses. We're also very focused on learning opportunities, and especially in terms of offering an international dimension to your studies. So offering the opportunity first with via touring schemes now. It is going to be via Erasmus, as that is coming back as of next year. So offering that dimension and creating a course that actually has that opportunity for you to plug into that is really, really important for us. I've talked about research already and our achievements in that area and how we really, in my view, punch above our weight. But our research isn't just ranking in, THC, in Times Higher Education. It's actually about the impact that we have in the world with the research that we do. And this is research that as postgraduate taught students, you can feed into. So in terms of helping people live longer, in terms of contributing to to a very important industry in the UK, the creative, but also cultural industry or set of industries. So research really is about the contribution that we can make all collectively as staff and students, not just a ranking in a league table. Next slide, please, Natasha. So, why you love Bournemouth? I think it's difficult for me to offer a perspective on why somebody who will be a student will love Bournemouth. I mean, obviously, I can just speak about my own personal story. I've been based in Bournemouth for about 18 years now, very long time. I've made it my home. I think it's a fantastic location in terms of natural beauty and scenery, in terms of the community, in terms of the activities that one can undertake, in terms of the learning environment that the university offers. So I think you really will enjoy that. It doesn't matter what your thing is. It could be nightlife. It could be actually sports. It could be something else. I think there's something for everybody in Bournemouth. It's easy to talk about things such as the beach. And again, it is a very big plus to the location, not just to the university, but the overall location as well. But we really do think that having that balance in terms of your study, so making sure that, yes, you're actually focused on studying here, but at the same time, having a good work-life balance, having other activities that you can undertake, being in an environment that is appealing and is calming and has things to offer is very, very important. So we always talk about that. We are certain you're going to love Bournemouth, very much like all of us here who will be talking to you do. Next slide, please, Natasha. So if you do undertake one of the courses that we're going to see in a bit with us, I think it's important to say that you'll be based in the Talbot campus of Bournemouth University. Technically speaking, we have three campuses. So we have the Talbot campus, we have the Lansdowne campus, which is based centrally. It could be that you're asked to attend something at the Lansdowne campus, which is probably going to be an extracurricular activity. But in terms of the facilities for the four different schools that we have within the faculty, in terms of the courses, in terms of our labs, in terms of actually even the staff offices, all of it, it's actually based in the Talbot campus. And we'll explore a little bit of that, or maybe I'll talk a little bit about that as we get through the list of the courses as well. So next slide, please, Natasha. So, I've talked about the faculty being a construct of discipline areas earlier, and I think you will see this now, perhaps in action. So, this faculty, so one of the three faculties at Bournemouth University, consists of four different schools. So, on this slide, we'll actually focus on the postgraduate, the master's courses for two of the schools, and then we'll do the other two in the next slide. So, for the School of Computing and Engineering, one of the four schools, we have the following courses that we offer postgraduate study in: engineering project management, mechanical engineering, data science and artificial intelligence, digital health, information technology, cybersecurity, human-centered artificial intelligence, human-centered artificial intelligence for games development, financial technology or fintech, and computer science. So that's our computing and engineering postgraduate provision. For the School of Psychology, we have MSc Clinical and Developmental Neuropsychology, MSc Investigative Forensic Psychology, Foundations of Clinical Psychology MSc, MSc Psychology, MSc Research Methods, and finally the PG Cert Education Practice, which is an educational qualification. It's a postgraduate qualification, that's why it's there. It's not actually an MSc, but it is very much a postgraduate qualification too. So that's the provision in computing and engineering and psychology. So psychology is the biggest, I think it's the biggest part of the school, of the faculty in terms of postgraduate provision. So in terms of master students that we currently have in this faculty and student numbers, that's the biggest entity. But let's move on to the next slide so we can see the other two schools as well. Thank you, Natasha. So we have the two other schools now. I'll start with the National Center for Computer Animation, or as we call it, the NCCA. National Center for Computer Animation is quite the mouthful, so we use an acronym there. We do use a lot of acronyms, actually, but NCCA is definitely one of them. So for the NCCA, we have the MA in 3D Computer Animation, the MA in Digital Effects, the MSc in Computer Animation and Visual Effects, and the MSc in Artificial Intelligence for Media. Finally, last but certainly not least, we have the Media School and our postgraduate courses in that direction. So MA Marketing and Communications, MA Media and Communication, Production Management, Cinematography for Film and Television, Directing Film and Television, Post-Production Editing, MA Producing Film and Television, MA Scriptwriting, Sound Design for Screen, Creative Writing and Publishing, International Political Communication, and finally, the Doctor of Education in Creative and Media. So that's another educational qualification as well, which is postgraduate in its nature. So very, very diverse. As you can tell, across the four different schools, we go from STEM subjects to more academic subjects like psychology, to creative industry subjects in the NCCA, but also media school area. So it is very, very diverse. You're all here for different courses on these lists. We know that. That's why we've got an assortment of people who hopefully will actually answer your questions in some of those different directions. But let's move on. Natasha, next slide, please. So I've already talked about the makeup of the faculty, the STEM base, digital, creative industries, some humanities as well. We try to, I think it's important to state at this stage that even though it is quite diverse, and you can see that from the list of the courses, we always try to cultivate a sense of community for the entire faculty. So we do it via joint hackathons, innovation and research projects that reach out across different schools and across different disciplines. Shared facilities. If you look at the Pool Gateway building facility that we have on campus, and I would really welcome you to visit us and see that. It's a dedicated media building that we set up in 2020, shortly before the pandemic, in fact. So it is very much a state-of-the-art facility. All of the animation, games development, music production, media courses are actually housed there. So the fact that there is a shared facility for all of these different discipline areas, or somewhat different discipline areas, that really helps in cultivating this community feeling and this collaboration and synergistic feeling that I've talked about. So, but let's move on. Next slide, please, Natasha. Yeah, I think we'll we'll go into some of the award-winning stuff in the next bit. So let's actually move on to that and some of the research achievements too. So speaking of research achievements specifically, there's a lot of activities, and some of these are very recent, in fact. There's a lot more I can talk about, but there's a lot of activities that I think you'll be really interested in, you might wish to partake in, or you'll benefit from in terms of some of the resources that have been generated or knowledge that has been generated out of them. So, for example, we're finalizing at the moment the build of a new cybersecurity facility on the ground floor of Pool House. It's a 2.3 million facility that has been funded by the Office of Students. It's the regulatory body for higher education in the UK. So it will serve the cybersecurity as well as computing courses, but we do plan to use it for other discipline areas as well, especially for hackathons. I think that's our main, that's the current idea at the moment. It's a fantastic state-of-the-art facility. It has something called a Security Operations Center of the Future, which effectively is a very large wall of displays where you can visualize information accordingly and run scenarios based on that. It's easier to experience this rather than me describe it verbally, if I'm honest with you. In terms of research successes that I wanted to talk about, we've just had a major European Union funding success in computing, in AI agent engineering specifically. So that's 600K on a 6 million overall project. We're also the technical coordinator of that project, so we're basically the lead for the entire consortium. We do consultancy work with a lot of companies. As I said earlier, we try to work with the industry as much as we can. So we have a 320K consultancy project that is finishing with Scottish Gas Networks. So that's on accessible CO2 alarms. So I think I've talked about making an impact and improving people's lives. That's a great example. So having accessible to the entire population CO2 alarms, I think is a fascinating prospect that can really give back and improve the quality of life and also secure quite a significant part of the population. Also, speaking of accessibility, we have an EPSRC award, approximately 320K again, for assistive and accessible technology. And that's on building a network with some other UK partners, other UK institutions such as the Open University, for example. They're involved with that. And creating a network and a set of recommendations on how something like this can be set up for the area of computing. Next slide, please, Natasha. So, again, many achievements I can talk about in terms of awards, in terms of recognition. Some very recent ones, in fact, in the last few weeks, but I'll try and focus on these. So the National Center for Computer Animation in particular has actually, there's a lot of accolades that this quite established part of the faculty has had in the recent years and past that. So we've had Emmy Award winners on Disney Xandro last year. This year, we've actually had 2 Oscar winners. One was for K-pop Demon Hunters. I don't know if you've seen that on Netflix. And the other one was for Avatar Fire and Ash. So those 2 graduates of ours have actually worked on those 2 projects that won an Oscar this year. Recognition can manifest in other ways, not just in awards at the Oscars or at the Emmys. This year, we've actually attracted Creative Assembly funded studentships. That's a major games development studio based in the UK. They do the Rome Total War or Total War series of strategy games. I don't know if you guys play games, but if you do play strategy games, you will have heard of Total War. So they're actually funding our students to come onto the NCCA, the National Center for Computer Animation courses, or select students, I should say, as part of this new initiative. The NCCA does really well in terms of rankings as well. There's a specialist set of rankings called Rookies. In 2025, the National Center for Computer Animation was actually first in the UK for 3D animation and second in the UK for visual effects. We work with a lot of accreditation bodies as well on all of the different discipline areas, from the media school to psychology and computing and engineering and the NCCA as well. So we work with a lot of bodies that accredit our courses, where we actually involve them in terms of the industrial advisory bodies that we have, in terms of the graduation ceremonies, in many other ways as well. IMEC and IED for engineering, the British Computer Society and the British Psychological Society for computing and also psychology as well, James for music production, Thai guys for games, and the list goes on. I'm not going to list all of them there because I think it'd be quite tiresome. Plus, I do want to get to your questions at some point. But it is important to say that we engage with professional accreditation bodies quite significantly as well. Next slide, please, Natasha. So our learning approach, which you will experience if you join us for one of the courses, involves authentic assessments, obviously, real-world problem solving, consultancy and live briefs. I've talked about that before in terms of getting the industry to provide some of the assignments, simulations. Some of those simulations, some of those exercises will take place over a week. Computing does that, for example. So it's an assessment that takes place over a number of days. It's a fairly busy week, but very, very productive. I know the media school also does similar exercises like that. There's a lot of skills development. Obviously, there's a lot of guest speakers. We very often go beyond just guest speaking. We will have workshops with the industry. We've had CV writing sessions from industry visitors. Obviously, we have things such as the BFX, which is a visual effects annual festival that the NCCA is running, but also other initiatives from other parts of the faculty. We have FODI, the Festival of Design and Engineering, from my engineering colleagues as well. Again, that's an annual event every June. The industry visits. It's an exhibition show for final year students and their project specifically. And last but not least, we do placements for our courses, many of our courses, including PG. And it's quite important if you wish to do one. It's not compulsory, but if you wish to do one, to actually get that practical application within a company experience as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so one question I very often get at these events, actually, on open days for undergraduates as well as postgraduates, who say is how is the course structured? As in, is it mostly assignments? What type of assignments? Do we have exams? So the answer is it's actually quite difficult to answer that, because if you saw the list of courses that we're trying to cover with this session, it's actually quite diverse. It's a long list across 4 schools. So broadly speaking, we have taught units. We have some independent study, which is actually a really important part of being, especially postgraduate student. I would argue an undergraduate student as well. And we have a major project and dissertation too. Now, how this is clustered across all of those courses, it will differ, but we use semesters. I think it's important to say that. And the last part, also after the 2 semesters, you will have your dissertation or major project as well. Generally speaking, there's some slight variations on what I've just described. But again, because we have a long list, hopefully I'll be forgiven for generalizing a little bit. Let's move on to the next slide. Right, so this is a video. So it was quite interesting. Before we play, I'll just preface this. So this is an NCCA, a National Center for Computer Animation student. We thought it was quite important to actually play the story of an individual rather than just hear our stories and also, answer your questions as well. So let's go into the video and we'll come back to that.
When I went to Bournemouth, I didn't know anything about animation. To then working on some crazy, amazing films has been a dream come true. I'm Brenda, I'm a 3D animator at DNEG Animation, and this is my BU journey. I went to Bournemouth because I saw they had a really awesome program for computer animation. It had the perfect merge of, the math side and the computer techie side, but also the artistic side, the live drawing side. There was an exam that I had to go to and like an interview process, so I got to see everything. There's a really nice Sully in the building for computer animation, so that's fun. Almost that was kind of what I was like, oh yeah, this is the place to be. I started my undergraduate degree in 2016, and at first, you don't really know what you're getting into. I had a vague idea of what filmmaking was and, animation was, but I didn't really know what I was really getting into. I got to try a bit of everything, and as I was studying it, I kept changing what I wanted to do until I eventually ended as a character animator. You learn what you like because there's the time and the space that makes you feel safe to experiment. As I was approaching the end of my undergraduate degree, I took advantage of, the connections that Bournemouth has, and, I started asking for feedback, and then I decided to go into my master's and now fully committing to become a character animator. So my top skills that I have been learning at uni and now I'm using in my career role, I think for me first is communication. In Bournemouth we collaborate a lot, there's a lot of group projects. Asking questions becomes really, really encouraged. And also answering your own questions, because you have to become really independent, thinking outside of the box and how can I solve this, and it makes you resourceful, and I think that's really important. My first job was for a TV episodic department for Blue Zoo Animation. They liked my showreel of the work that I have been doing at BU, and I got my first interview and then I got my job. My current role is I'm a 3D animator at DNEG Animation. I'm in the feature animation department, and I'm proud to have reached now this point where I get to do the difficult shots and think about the very, very little things in the frame, because I enjoy that. I definitely saw, a big growth of myself in the time I have been at DNEG, because I feel very relied on, very supported. Bournemouth definitely gave me, those first steps that I needed and the confidence I needed then to, ask even more questions and learn even more. There's a big network of Bournemouth graduates already in the industry. I was happy to hear that they knew what I've been through, and we bonded over projects and we bonded over places that we had been, and definitely a nice bonding experience that we had because there were so many graduates already in the industry.
Excellent. I mean, that's such a great success story, actually. And DNEG is sort of double negative, so it's a big visual effects studio, and they've done work on more films than you can imagine, actually, and a lot of them again are award-winning. So yeah, we're very proud of graduates such as obviously the video that you've just seen. So, and I think it's important to try and represent the story briefly in this presentation. So. Opportunities to engage in research. Again, I have talked about this as well. I mean, I think it's worth highlighting that that's something that we would like you to do. It's not compulsory. I know that psychology has a voluntary research assistance scheme, which is actually really successful. But other schools as well try to engage with this. Very often, you'll actually get to work with an academic in terms of coming up with an idea together for a research project for your independent dissertation project. Or indeed, there might be an opportunity to be involved in a short-term research project as well. This is similar to the psychology model that I've described here. Postgraduate taught study, so master study, this was certainly the case for me, can actually lead to doctoral research study as well. So you could do a PhD effectively, and it's a good gateway towards doing that, doing a master's course. We do actually have quite a lot of PhD students in the faculty. So the faculty has approximately 5,000 students. This is undergraduate, postgraduate, and PhD as well, or PGR, postgraduate researchers. So we have 290 postgraduate research students. So certainly, if that's something that you wish to pursue, and doing the master's or the postgraduate taught degree is part of that journey or plan that you have, certainly there might be an opportunity towards that as well. Next slide, please. So I'm not going to dwell on this. I'm just going to leave that up there for a minute. Maybe I'll just pick one, actually. So it is important to actually focus on some of the success stories of our graduates in terms of destinations in particular. Be it somebody such as Ren Flynn, who works at Blue Zoo as a character animator. So Ren graduated in 2025 and is actually part of a BAFTA-winning company now. Blue Zoo in particular, and I've singled them out for a specific reason, is a company that has actually started from, one of my NCCA colleagues can probably tell this story better than me, but it's a company that started from 3 graduates from the NCCA 25 years ago. So that's a company that's, if you know, it's NCCA grown startup or company as well. So we're very, very proud of them. I think one of the founders is actually coming to our BFX festival this year, our annual visual effects festival I talked about earlier. They're actually going to do one of the keynotes. So I think that'd be fantastic. Tom Box, I think, is the name. So Ren is there. We have a lot of other names there. Dr. Irma Konovalova, she's a clinical psychologist at Dorset Healthcare University NHS Foundation Trust. So very, very diverse. So we're very proud of the destinations and the achievements for our graduates, and we always try to highlight it, even if it is with a couple of slides like that or a video such as the one you just saw. Next slide, please. So in terms of academic support, I've already talked a little bit about mental health and well-being support as well. Obviously, we offer support in many different directions, including academic skills, research and data, subject specialist librarians that can help you with a lot of the inquiries you have around your studies that relate to the library. Our academics will naturally assist you with the dissertation supervision and guidance, but we also have a dedicated set of colleagues in the library services for that too. Next slide, please. So being part of the BU community does mean that you're part of a quite large postgraduate network, both within the faculty but also outside of the faculty. A research community that's very, very active. We're very, very proud of research, and our academics in particular are very proud of their research. So you will be part of that community as well, especially given that you are a PG, a postgraduate student. And then moving on to the union, the student union, the SUBU side of things. There's a lot of communities. My understanding is there's over 100 communities now registered formally at SUBU, the Student Union of Bournemouth University, for specific hobbies, all the way to things that actually do relate to studies as well. So, I mean, there's a games development society, for example. So if you're doing something in that direction, there's actually an extracurricular society that you can join, where you can converse with like-minded people. You can actually go to events. Obviously, there's a lot in sports. There's everything, really. There's societies in food tasting. You name it, there's a society for it, I would say. So, but that's an important part of being of belonging in a community, the BU, the Bournemouth University community. So I really would urge you, if you do join us, to actually explore the communities that we have as part of what SUBU has set up. I think it's an integral part of not just your studying here, but your life here at Bournemouth University. Next slide, please. That's it. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to move on to the questions. I think one of the questions has been answered already, but we can take that too. So let's start with this one. And by all means, please ask your questions. I am going to be quiet in a bit, and I want to get some of my colleagues to answer some of these questions, actually, so you can hear from them. Maybe they can say a couple of things about themselves and who they are. So let's start with this one. So does the MSc in Digital Health require placement? Do we have anybody from computing here? I'm just looking around. I don't think we do, actually. I don't want to put anybody on the spot. I mean, I can answer the question myself. Does anybody want to answer that question, or shall I go for it? Right, I'll go for it. Everybody's been quiet. So none of the courses that we've shown you require a placement. So in terms of that being mandatory, in terms of that being something that you absolutely must do, that's not something you should be concerned about. If you want to do a placement, some of the courses, and that will be signified on the website of the course. Every course will have a website on the university. Some of the courses do offer placements, so you can do an optional placement if you wish as part of studying on that course, but you will not be required to actually do one. There are some courses at the university that have specific requirements in terms of placements. They tend to be in the healthcare dimension. This particular course, however, is in the School of Computing and Engineering. It's actually a computing course in the domain area of digital health, or health. So you don't actually have to get a placement, or you don't have to do a placement in the NHS to complete it like you would for some other healthcare courses. Hopefully that answers your question. So the answer is it's not compulsory. Right, so there's another question here. Is precast interview mandatory for all applicants? And I think, Max, you've had a stab at answering that. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to be able to answer that, actually, without knowing if you're an international student. I think Max's answer is good. So thanks for doing that, Max. That really helps, actually. So it would be better to direct that to one of our admissions colleagues, if I'm honest, because the colleagues that we have here, like myself actually, are academics and also students. So that's not really a question I'm confident to give you a definitive answer on, even though I actually think Max's answer is actually quite accurate. So, right. So there's another question. Let's see. So I understand that fees are charged on a pro rata basis of the full-time fee. However, I would like to confirm whether this means I will pay half the fee if I take half the course load as a part-time student in my first year, or if the fee is calculated based on the modules I enroll. Really good question. Again, it's quite a tough one. We do have some PG students here. Do you guys have any views on that? Alex, perhaps? Not sure. Anybody else who's a PG student? Yeah, I mean, I don't want to let you down really, but that's an admissions question which I don't have the answer for myself. Any of my academic colleagues, would you know the answer to that based on any part-time provision you have in your area?
I can deal with this, Christos, if it would be
Thank
helpful.
you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name's Hewell Dix. I'm the course leader for MA Creative Writing and Publishing. So with that in mind, I should say that all I know about is what happens on my own course, so don't necessarily take this as gospel for all of the courses. But the way that MA Creative Writing and Publishing works is that there are 6 taught units and then a dissertation at the end. Typically, somebody who's chosen the part-time route would do 3 units in the first year. So that is exactly half, and they are indeed charged exactly half the fee. So in our case, the short answer is yes, it is exactly pro rata.
Sure, that is super useful. Thanks for that. So hopefully that answers your question. So we'll try and move on to the other one. So the next one I can see. So Natasha, thanks for chipping in on the fees question. Actually, I really appreciate that. So the next one I can see is on the MSc Data Science and Artificial Intelligence program. So the question is, will it commence in January, not September? My understanding is that specific course we don't do that for all of our PG courses, but a lot of our PG courses have 2 entry points, one in January and one in September. So you can apply for either of those. So I'm not sure if you've actually applied for the January one. Certainly at this stage, what I would say to your question is you can apply for the September one for the MSc Data Science and Artificial Intelligence. So I'm not sure why you might want to start in January, but if you want to start in January, that's also possible as well. So yeah, and 2 entry points for that specific course. Yeah. So let's move on. Next one. I'm looking to study MA script writing next September 2027. Do I need to submit a portfolio? I'm currently studying my undergraduate degree in creative writing and have never studied screenwriting before. Can I still apply? Who wants to take this one?
I'll take that. It's part of the MA framework. So, hello there. My name is Raina. I take care of all of the programs that fall under what we affectionately call the media production framework. And in terms of one of those 7 courses is the script writing course. And you absolutely do not have to worry about the fact that you've not done script writing before. The fact of the matter is you've done creative writing before, you have a passion for script writing. That is what you need to apply. We do ask for some sort of portfolio to be submitted as part of the submission process, but that can be any form of writing that you wish to showcase your abilities with. And you can definitely also still apply. If you also need more information about that and advice, please don't hesitate to contact me. You can find my contact information on the website. But you're all set to apply with your current undergraduate program, so don't worry about that. Hope that was helpful.
Fantastic answer. If I can say that myself, I've not actually applied for this course, but I think that was a great answer. So,
Can I
that's
also
great.
come in there? Sorry.
Yeah, go for it. Go for
Just
it.
because Hannah mentioned creative writing in the question, so without wishing to kind of compete for you, Hannah, with Raina's course, if you are interested in carrying on with creative writing, I would say that we also use a portfolio as our main application measure. So as it happens, you do talk about the fact that you already have an undergrad in creative writing. In reality, actually, most of the people that come onto the MA in creative writing don't have an undergrad in it. It's what we call a conversion degree. That's why we mainly use the portfolio as our selection measure. And I guess it's probably quite similar on Raina's course as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Huel. That's really useful as well.
Yeah. But perhaps, Christos, I can just give a little bit more context about the script writing, just as this might feature in your decision to kind of pick between the two. What we do on the framework is we create a environment that mirrors industry practice. So what you will do as a script writer is also work with the other disciplines. So that would be producing, production management, directing, cinematography, post-production sound, and editing. And you will be asked to write scripts for the framework, and people will actually take your script and transform that into a film. So you will, by the end of your studies, also see your work being realized into finished films. So do come with that mindset that you will be part of a production framework to actually make the films that you will be writing. And what we also do is like 80% of your time will be dedicated to script writing, but we also ask you to maybe select a minor discipline as well. That one of the other 6 disciplines in which we will also train you up. And the reason behind that madness is it increases your employability, and it makes the collaborative experience all the better. So if you do come and do script writing, also know that you will be asked to also kind of do a minor in one of the others. And what would make sense as well for a script writer to do is to think about, okay, maybe you get a lot of writer directors, so you might also want to do kind of some kind of upskilling in what it means to be a director, because that also makes you a better screenwriter. Or producing is also something that script writers tend to choose. So I thought that is an important caveat to also kind of throw into the mix if you are considering doing the program on screenwriting. Sorry for talking a lot, Christos.
That's great, and you can see the passion that my colleagues have for their courses. I mean, I actually wanted to come across. So that's perfect. That's great. So, right, the next 2 questions are actually on the MSc Data Science and Artificial Intelligence. There's another question that seems to be separate to the previous one, that seems to suggest that course starts in January as well. So we're getting that from a second person, it seems. I have just asked the head of school about that, literally as we were answering the previous question. So I'll try and come back to that point about, I'm pretty sure that starts in September, but I'm happy to be told otherwise by the head of school. So let's hopefully get a response in the next few minutes on that. The other question is, can you please put me in touch with a student on the MSc Data Science and Artificial Intelligence program? Do we have any students here? I know Alex is from psychology. Ryan and Ugona, I don't know if you're in computing. Is anybody from would you be able to say anything about this program? You might know a few things about it. You might not be necessarily on this one, but
for data science.
Yeah, the MSc in Data Science and AI.
Okay. Currently studying my MSc in Information Technology. So how it works here is that if sometimes we have courses that affiliate with this particular department. So let me say on this particular day we do courses with you. But with this MS Data Science now, they teach you like core skills you're meant to know, but the tools you're meant to apply in your course. But so it's not mainly about the course itself, it's mainly about having experience with like real life experience than doing like real life things. So this is like one about this particular course because it's kind of different from what I'm doing.
Okay. I think you're gonna obviously you're on a computing master, so hopefully some of that is comparable to the data science and artificial intelligence. I mean, it is difficult to get you in touch. In answer to the question, it's difficult to get you in touch with somebody who, short of this session, really, because we need the permission and obviously, getting questions answered. The best opportunity is an open day, and to actually attend an open day, including an open day in person as well. So hopefully, however, some of the information that we're providing via Ugona, by myself, by other colleagues, is helpful to you. So next one, I think Ian is here. Ian, you might want to take this one. So can you tell me the main differences between the MSc Computer Animation and Visual Effects and the MA 3D Computer Animation?
Yeah, okay. So in total, we have 4 MA courses in the NCCA. There's the MSc Artificial Intelligence and MSc CAVE Computer Animation Visual Effects, which you mentioned. So MSc CAVE is a technical course. You'll be scripting, building tools, ideally sort of a little bit of a programming background. Certainly it's a technical course rather than an art-based course. On the art side, we have the MA Digital Effects and MA 3D Computer Animation. And the difference between those two, these are both more art-based courses. I'd say MA 3D is the most art-based course, where they're really looking at sort of largely sort of character animation and modeling, in a sort of a non-photorealistic style. MA Digital Effects is also an art-based course, but perhaps with a slight edge of technical, where we're looking at integrating CG elements into photorealistic shot footage.
Brilliant, Ian. Thanks for that. So that's a really succinct explanation, actually. Thanks for that. Hopefully, Lillian, that answers your question in terms of the difference between the two. I think the MA 3D is slightly bigger in terms of numbers. Am I wrong in saying that, Ian?
It is bigger in terms of numbers, but I would also say MSc Computer Animation does much better in terms of industrial sort of outcomes. Basically, anyway, if you have any technical skills and you want to get into the film industry, then actually everyone wants to be a character animator, and the industry is desperate for technical directors.
An interesting view. So, Lillian, hopefully that gives you some help towards your decision between the two.
It should be a fairly straightforward one. Basically, if you can program or you want to program, it's an MSc CAVE. If you want to do character animation, it's MA 3D. If you want to blow things up and film things, it's MA Visual Effects. Digital Effects.
Thank you, Ian. That's really useful. Just to go back to something that I've already put in the Q&A, but I've just had a definitive response for the, I'm not sure if it's two separate people or one person, but on the MSc Data Science and Artificial Intelligence, it definitely has both a September and January start. 100% I've talked to the head of school in the background. It's great to multitask in these sessions. So, so that's, hopefully that helped. If you want to start in September, you can start in September. So I'm not sure if a communication has said January and maybe that has been confusing, but you can definitely start in September. So, are there any more questions? I don't see anything that we haven't yet covered. So, we still have 7 minutes to go. So, happy to take some more questions. If anybody wants to type one in. Just give it a minute. Actually, I will take this one because somebody has, Alex very kindly has done this. So Alex, many thanks for that. Actually, maybe you can talk about that. So the total cost for PhD, do you want to talk about that briefly? I know you've typed it in, but I think it might be interesting for.
Yeah, so someone's asked about the cost of a PhD program. The information I've got there is available online as well, so you can find that on our website. But for the starters coming up in the 26-27 academic year, full-time fees are £5,250 per year for home students, and international, it's £21,000 and £26,000 for library-based and lab-based, respectively. Although something I do want to add, and I think this is really important to bring up as well, is funding bodies are available nationally as well. For example, I'm funded through Bournemouth University as well, after an application to the ESRC, and Ryan, you're industry funded as well, which is probably a bit more relevant for the computing and technology discipline, of which the person who asked the question is in. So yeah, funding opportunities are available, and I would really push people towards those because they are a great opportunity.
Absolutely. So that's a great answer, Alex. Thanks so much for that. I mean, ideally, you do want to do, like Alex, like Ryan, you actually want to do a fully funded PhD. However, I mean, we offer the opportunity for you to actually fund it yourself if that's what you want to do. I think the majority of our doctorates, as I said, we've got 290. The majority of them, not all of them, we do have self-funded students, actually, but the majority of them are actually funded via some sort of bursary or industrial support or some other scheme as well, or externally funded through a research project. I mean, there's different routes for that. But yeah, that option is there if you want to self-fund it. Absolutely. There's one question. How do I access the funding as an international student? Funding for doctorate study? I mean, I'm just going to assume that's for doctorate study, because I'm not actually sure there's any available funding for international students for anything else. So, Alex, do you want to chip in for that before I have a stab at it, or no? Okay. So, I mean, in terms of yes, for the PhD. So, okay, that's fine. It works in a similar way. It does depend where the funding is coming from, because what happens with a funded PhD, a funded other than you, and then yourself funding a PhD, is the money has to come from somewhere. So there are some external bodies that stipulate, for example, UK research councils do that typically, that stipulate that it has to be a home student. There is some other type of funding we have for doctorates, however, that might not have that restriction, in which case you could be able to do a fully funded doctorate. It does vary, I'm afraid, where the funding is coming from. I know that in the past, for international students, some of the funding that we've provided as an institution, we've actually not had a problem with taking on international students for PhD, fully funded PhD positions, just to give you an example. But I think with external funding, especially more established research councils, it is harder to actually access that as an international student. Does any of my colleagues have any insights on that they wish to share, or is that broadly accurate, you'd say? Does anybody want to chip in? Okay, I think I will take that as agreement to what I've talked about. So, brilliant. Let's actually see if there's anything else. I don't see any open ones, but let's actually scan through the other list as well. Okay, there is an admissions chat at 5 o'clock. I know that, and I really would urge you to go to that, because some of the questions are also very relevant there as well. I mean, we're more the subject experts really, and also the students on the courses. So, if there is another question, we can quickly do that in 2 minutes. So, what is the difference in terms of contact hours between full-time and part-time courses? Anybody that wants to do that? I don't want to monopolize this. No, nobody wants to. I mean, Hugh?
Yes, I mean, again, I would talk primarily about my own course and couldn't necessarily generalize, but typically, because the course is structured with 6 taught units, so it's 3 per year, what they normally do is 2 units in one semester and then 1 unit in the second semester, and then the second year it swaps, so it's 1 unit in the first semester and 2 in the second semester. What that means is that in some of the semesters, it's actually more or less the same amount. But in the semesters where they're only taking 1 unit, it's significantly less.
Fantastic, Hugh. That's great. I mean, I would actually caveat it with exactly what Hugh just said. That's an approach in one of the courses. It's difficult to give you, and you haven't mentioned the course, it's difficult to tell you exactly what that would look like, because this may differ slightly from course to course. Hugh, is that accurate?
It is accurate. One other thing that may be different from course to course is that I positively recommend for MA Creative Writing and Publishing, the part-time route is better because you immerse yourself in the material over the course of 2 years. But of course, there are all sorts of other personal agendas and things going on that might make 1 year full-time more desirable. And certainly, according to course, that would vary, I guess.
Sure.
And in media and production, for example, we do not offer part-time. It's just a full-time course from, over the space of a year. So that wouldn't be, if you are considering kind of media production courses, you wouldn't have that option at all.
That's a really important point. Actually, I was meaning to say that. It was a long list of courses I showed you in the presentation. Some of them are not offered in part-time. Some of them are, like Huel's course. Some of them are not. So I think it is important to actually look at the university website and see, the first thing you should do is that course actually offered as part-time? If you have an offer, which you may do, then, and it says part-time, then it is running part-time, because we've made you an offer based on that. But if you're thinking about applying, I would check the course and make sure that on the university website, it actually says part-time and not just full-time. On that note, it's 5 o'clock. I do want to let you go to the admissions talk because I think you will be interested in that and you will have more questions that are more relevant for that session. So I will let you go. I'd like to thank all of my colleagues here for helping me out with this. Apologies for the slightly belated start because of technical issues. We hope you found that of some help and of some interest, and maybe some of the enthusiasm and passion that we have for the discipline areas has come through. And yeah, looking forward to seeing some of you in person. In 3D as well, not just in front of a camera at Bournemouth University in the future. Thank you very much for that. Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.